Benfica Podcast is one of the founding members of Benfica Independent. Benfica Independent is an independent platform made by fans for fans, and in it, you can find our podcast along with many other podcasts, along with articles of opinion, video segments, and much, much more. We're also on patreon.com/Benfica Independent with exclusive contents for our patrons.
Hasta que no estás aquí dentro no sabes la grandeza de este equipo. Sí, es un club que tiene una grandeza que no se comprende si no estás aquí dentro.
Usando uma magia única, benfiquista, que só nós sentimos assim. Por muitos desgostos que possamos ter, valores mais altos se levantam. E o valor mais alto que se levanta em termos futebolísticos chama-se Benfica.
Quero o Benfica intimidar o adversário. Quero um manto sagrado entrar com vocês em qualquer estado e assustá-los, pá! É isso que eu quero!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 500 of the Talking to the Doll Benfica podcast. My name is Alfredo Fumaças. Been here throughout the 500 episodes. What's happening, everybody? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for supporting us. 500 is a long time. To celebrate the 500, we got an OG from the podcast history, Steve Santos. Steve Santos, what's happening, Steve Santos?
You know, I really want to say it's another night, it's another podcast, but today's a special one.
Absolutely.
Chris has been bugging me for a while to come back on the podcast, even though for the most part, sometimes I don't know how much of a point I have to prove or to make is probably the better way to say it. But for 500, I had to be here, and happy to be here. I think it's huge milestone. It's like over 10 years of Alfredo's hard work, and I think it's important to be here and join in on the celebration. Let's say.
Yeah, thank you. For those of you that don't know, Steve was one of the original co-hosts, if you will, of the Benfica podcast. I think we were maybe a few episodes in, Steve, before you joined. Do you remember what episode you joined on? Was it in the 10?
I think you started in 2012.
Yeah.
I think you started in 2012.
I did.
And I started the 2012-2013 season. I think you started like midway through the 2011-2012 season, and I think I started doing 2012-2013.
Yeah, I think we were like maybe 15 to 20 episodes in when you joined.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Something like that. Also here tonight, the usual guys. Dave De Oliveira, what's happening, Dave? And I'm going to go to you since Steve's up in Canada also.
You're gonna do the Northern Adventure first here. I'm doing well. Good to be back on. We got the Freddies all in a celebratory mood for the 500 episode, not because of how we've been playing, but a lot of congrats and parabéns in the chat there. So good to see the Freddies really active in the chat there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Also with us, not an OG, but I think at this point he has an OG status. Cristiano Oliveira, what's going on, Cristiano?
What's up, fellas? I see I'm getting the adult rap treatment here, being left for last. But it's all right. Today's a special day.
You're on the beach?
I'm on the beach. Eating fortunas. What's going on, everybody? Freddy's, welcome to a very special edition of the Benfica podcast. Please be very active. Smash the like button. Yeah. Smash the like button. And we hope we make it a memorable one today. We have plenty to talk about. And like Alfredo said, we have Steve Santos. Could not be excited to have my buddy back. I used to go back and forth with him, and I don't like beating up on Dave. So hopefully we could rekindle some of that lost magic today.
I don't know about
instead, I guess, eh?
Yeah, I don't know about lost magic, but something. We'll get something. Anyway, aside from being episode 500, we have the usual menu up for you. We're going to recap the Porto win, also recap the Inter loss, and we'll look ahead to Estoril. That's what we have on tap tonight. Usual episode 500, yes, definitely a milestone. I guess, I never thought about this, but I think that as I started this project, and for those of you that don't know, and I tell the story every now and again, so I used to have a blog, and the blog was called Talking to the Doll because it was really something just for me to talk about Benfica and to get things off my chest. And I mean, we're talking about 2012, so not the best time for Benfica, so I needed to kind of a little bit of an escape. So I started writing a blog, which was game previews, game recaps. And then, I started hearing about this new thing, podcasts. So I said, well, maybe podcasts would probably be easier for me to do since, it doesn't involve writing and, I could just talk into the mic, whatever. So needless to say, I started the podcast and it was just me upstairs in my bedroom, halfway into the closet to isolate some of the sound from the outside. And I would just record these bits, and I would separate the bits by an eagle scream, right? And the thing was that, so if a blog took me maybe 45 minutes to write, to get my ideas on paper the right way, the podcast, I remember the first podcast, it used to take 3 hours to have a finished podcast because I would just be so subconscious in terms of, saying the wrong things or a lot of hums in there or a lot of silence. So I used to go back and edit every single segment, and they used to take me forever. So then after that, I think that I hooked up with a couple people. And we said, well, why don't we do it live on Google Hangouts? So we started doing it on Google Hangouts, but it wasn't live. I would just extract the audio and then publish the audio. But that's how we started doing it. So no more edits in terms of making sure that the sound was perfect, making sure that there was no hums, there was no silence. And we just started going from there. I remember Pedro Serodio was one of the first guys. Marco from up there was in. Eric Krakauer would jump in every now and again, and then Steve Santos came. That was also Neil, if you guys remember Neil. So it's been quite a bit. But back to my original point is, if you had asked me that if I imagined that 12 years later, 13 years later, I would have 500 episodes under our belt, I would have never imagined it. It was never something that I started with the intent of having longevity, because it was just me talking. I never really expected to have the audience that we have today, and albeit it's not something that's way crazy or to brag about. But the biggest thing is that we ended up creating this incredible community of folks that Portuguese is not their first language, and sometimes they have difficulty reading the Portuguese newspapers, so they would get their news from the podcast because obviously English was their native tongue. And we even got people from other countries that were Benfica supporters. I'm thinking of Pete Domican, for sure, Jeroen from the Netherlands. There was, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody, but there was a lot of people from other countries that enjoyed our podcast and probably still enjoy our podcast because it was their way of keeping up with Benfica. So, and that's how it started. And we created this great community, developed great friendships along the years. Peggy from Australia was one of the early listeners, and both him and Steve and Cristiano have a great friendship with Peggy, albeit him being around the world or halfway around the world. But it was the people that we've met when Benfica came and did the International Champions Cup. I met Dave also in person. Dave came down. Mario, a bunch of other guys, Timo, and Cristiano hates when I do this because I always end up forgetting somebody. But it was a great community that really grew And the one common thing was their love for Benfica, but it was also the podcast. Everybody listened to the podcast, and everybody commented on the podcast. So it was really great. So I think the biggest thing that I'm the most proud of is to have been able to not only be of service to a lot of guys that don't speak Portuguese, but follow the podcast to get their news and to get their Benfica talk. But also, that big community that we created and friendships that we created and some of the opportunities that have afforded me because of the podcast. I've been on BTV. Cristiano was with the team while they were here in International Champions Cup a few years back. We developed also great relationships with guys that are tied to the club and guys that today they have the Benfica Independent project, which we're a part of. And a lot of those guys, we became friends and developed great relationships. So it's like another family almost. So I'm very happy that the podcast have served the views, but also as a common point or a common listening thing that a lot of the people that have become friends as the internet and Twitter emerged, that have become friends and have great friendships. So thank you for the support, and I know that there's a lot of people that rely and depend on the podcast, and they like the podcast for entertainment, but also for news. And I appreciate you guys finding what we say credible, if you will. But yeah, we're here for you, and we're happy to do this. Steve was a big part of the show early on. Unfortunately, life called, and Steve had to take a step back because he didn't feel that he had the time to watch the games, to be on the podcast every Tuesday night, and I respected that. But Steve has always been a very near and dear friend of mine. I've been to his house in Canada, and he's been to my house in New Jersey. So we're more than good friends, I would say. So Steve, what everybody wants to know is what you've been up to, man. It's been, 3-4 years since you were last on a podcast? How old is Seba?
Sebastian is now 7.
So 7 years, maybe?
7 years old, yeah. I don't remember when I was on last, to be honest. I think I still came on a couple times after Sebastian was born, but after Stella was born in 2018, I don't think I've been on since then. So a good 5 years, living the dream up here. Work 9 to 5, take kids to school, pick them up, that kind of deal. But now as they've gotten older, I've been able to watch soccer more regularly, to the point where I'm here today. I have at least a good idea of what's going on with Benfica at the moment right now, and then it was a good time to come on and give some input. It's also something that I was able to do just this September. Was it September? Or no, it was August. So I went to my first match with Sebastian versus Estoril Amadora. And Nuno, if you're listening, muito obrigado. Outra vez. But what an experience. I've gone to probably a good 5-6 games previous to this at the Luge, but always Champions League. And one derby. So one derby and a bunch of Champions League games, but I've never felt the atmosphere like that. And to be there with my son, who I've also passed on the love for Benfica, it was just, it had an extra bit of emotion to it. Yeah. I remember Dean came on and I was like almost crying. It was intense. But yeah, that's where I've been for the past 5 years. I've been raising 2 children, but it's good to be back.
Yeah. Cristiano raises children. He could still be on a podcast, albeit sometimes later.
How he does it.
Sometimes they make an appearance.
Chris, you gotta give Steve Santos some lessons. That whole trick about locking kids in the bathroom for an hour, that works.
So when you got Jenga, you figure out a way to get out of a box.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, thank you for all the kind comments. Robert Fernandez says, you guys helped me become a true Benfiquista because of my language barrier to Portuguese, and you opened up my ears to the game more because no one in my town watches football. Yeah, and like Robert Fernandez, there's probably a lot of people out there. We've met people from all over the world, and it's great when you're somewhere and somebody comes up to you and say, "Hey, man, I listen to the podcast. You guys do a great job." So it's rewarding in that way, and thinking
like the
that
Polish guy in Clark.
Yeah, Polish guy, a Polish guy in Clark. It's rewarding to be somewhere and to be recognized, and for people to voice how important the podcast has been to them, right? Because we were the originals, and before there was a bunch of other Benfica podcasts, they're all great in their own right. There was only us, so people that discovered podcasts discovered us first. So I'm glad that they did, and I'm glad that they come up to us and tell us that we do a good job, and they appreciate the job that we do. But anyway, let's get this underway, right? Porto, Benfica hosted Porto on Friday. Go ahead.
Read Nick Valadon's comment as well, man.
Nick Valadon, I discovered the podcast late, but I'm so glad I did. The community and the commentary is something I look forward to every Tuesday or Wednesday.
Even though today's Wednesday, it's okay. Nobody's gonna like to check.
No, and Nick Valadon and his cousin Manny Valadon are habitual viewers of the podcast. So very good. Let's learn our
Freddies, bro. Get it correct. They're Freddies.
They're Freddies.
Habitual Freddies.
Habitual Freddies. They're not habitual viewers.
Yeah, Carlos Cantu says, congrats, guys. Tony Fig, parabéns. Jason Gaidola, Nick Valadon once again, Nuno M, Justin Aragão, DJ Natural, Alfredo Fumaças. All you guys. Kevin Martins, I am that I am. This is liberal from Ontario, but originally from Arif, São Miguel. Parabéns. Episode 500, that's awesome, guys. Cheers to another 500. Great job, guys. You guys are the best. You Freddies. Yeah. You Freddies, man.
Spoil us, man.
So,
you guys spoil us.
Merece nome em memória do grande Freddy Edu.
That's right. So, Porto game. I'll give you the lineup and we'll discuss a little bit of the changes. Truben was in goal. Bas, Silva, Otamendi, and Auschness. Neves and Kokshu. Di Maria, Neres, Rafa, and Musa. Cristiano, just when we didn't think it was possible. Neres and Di Maria on the same starting 11.
Yeah, that was definitely a curveball by Roger Schmidt, and I think he caught the opposition by surprise as well. So, look, it's something that we've called for, at least I have, for a very long time here on the podcast. I was glad to see it.
Yeah. And he proved that we could do it as long as the team is well balanced. Steve, I know that.
Get into that. I just left. I said I was glad to do it because I thought we were gonna, discuss the game. I was saving all that. But if you want to say, yeah, obviously he proved that he could do it. David Neres was arguably the best player on the pitch. This is a guy that's got all sorts of Jenga in his feet. He could create opportunities at any given moment, and I was glad to see that. Obviously, Fideo, big game player. So much talk before the game that he couldn't score against FCP, but he found a way to get the ball in the back of the net. So, yeah, those two guys are magic, but you need those two guys nice and fresh. Can't be getting burned down. Obviously, that's a reference to the game a few days later. But, yeah, it was good to see those guys play. And, obviously, came out with 3 points. Great result. And so when it works and try something new, it works, and you come away with the victory. I mean, you got to pat yourself on the back. So that's one. And I'm pretty sure we'll have, at least I will, have plenty to say about Roger Schmidt, but that's one that he could definitely pat himself on the back. He got that one right.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know Steve, what Steve brought to the podcast was a very analytical and tactical understanding of the game. And Steve is more of an X's and O's type of guy. Cristiano is a little bit more impulsive, more touch, more Jenga, more impact. And when we had Steve and Cristiano, it was such a great mix, right? Because Steve could give you the logic or the ideas behind why we line up the way we do, and Cristiano's like, nah, fuck that. We need guys with Jenga. We need Tarat on a team. We need this guy on a team. We need that guy on a team. And just getting back to what I was going to ask originally, Steve, and from a tactical aspect, understanding that both Di Maria and Neres are not guys that are going to track back, there's obviously an imbalance with the team with when those guys play.
Yeah, I think a lot of what happened in that game, or at least there was a before and after the red card. I think before the red card, there was a lot of instances where I was very uncomfortable having both of them on the pitch. That with Rafa, because with the three of them, you are getting players that don't play that don't participate so much in the defensive transition. If you watch Rafa, Neres, and Di Maria, when we lose the ball, their first instinct is basically put their head down and think, okay, I'm done now. Where in world football, that's something that you can't get away with. You can get away with it versus the Mancos, like Chris likes to say, but versus Porto, versus Inter, like we saw later on, you have to be able to play. The majority of your team has to be able to play in all four moments of the game. That's defensive transition, static defense, what you would call organized offense, and the counterattack. And when you have Neres, Rafa, and Di Maria, both or all three of them not really doing the work on the defensive transition, it leaves you very exposed. Before and even a little bit after with 10 men, you would see a lot of João Neves and Kokshu having to dart over to the sidelines to help out their fullbacks, which would then leave us open in the middle of the park because they were taken out of position. And it's just like a conveyor belt or a domino effect where that happens. And to be absolutely honest, I don't think that the way forward, at least in big matches, is with the three of them on the pitch. I honestly think we can only carry two of them at a time. Take your pick on who those two are. Mine would probably be Rafa and Di Maria, personally. But yeah, that's where I'm going. I think that there are games that we can get away playing that way. And I think the Porto game ended up with the red cards and the way things worked out that we could play that way. But just a few days later, we saw that there was another part to that we could talk about later. But I think there is proof that you can't play Di Maria and Neres. Or Di Maria and Neres, not Neres.
I'm sitting here. And look, you can see me. I got goosebumps because not for the positive though, but because and again, I'm not disagreeing with anything you just said. I think you're spot on. But I'm getting angry. I'm getting goosebumps, and I'm trying to contain myself.
You get goosebumps when you get angry, dude?
I'm getting angry, bro, because everything you just said is what I think is the biggest problem in football today. If football was fought over time the way that you just politely described, in the way that the Jose Mourinho's like to apply, bro, we would never have the Gingas of this world. We will never have the Ronaldinhos. We will never have those great footballers. We will never have great attacking football clubs because everybody's so freaking damn worried about defending today that you forget that on the other side, which is the thing that's most important, which is you got to score goals in order to win a game. And again, I'm not arguing with you. I'm not coming at you at all. But this is the noise that I hear every single day now from coaches, and I think, and to be honest, I think I blame Mourinho. This ain't even the capa chica chaca chenado, whatever that Italian crap. God, whatever. This is like the new way of Mourinho inventing. Remember when he came up and he started winning games with Porto and he's giving players little like love notes and like bringing them into the field in their socks and read this, and it became all about 11 men behind the ball, and you forget about the joy of football. And now it's like, well, it just showed, and again, I'm sorry, but it just showed that it could work. And I'm not arguing with you at all, because this is the overall thought process. The majority, I should say. Most people think like you think today, unfortunately. But I don't think it's gonna work. It just freaking worked. It just showed that it worked. But yet, you people that are so focused on defending and making sure that the defensive transition, bro, I came up in an era that everybody had a role. You got your dirty guys. You got the guys that dirty their shorts. That's what you're only on the field because that's all you can do. And then you got the Nanez of the world who play 100 in a Porto game, right? Marcar até o Benfica, jogar até o Benfica marcar, right? 120. And the guy's shorts were pristine. Why? Because he was there to do what? Score goals. Give me the ball inside the front. And again, I'm sorry, I went off on, but it just, today's thinking of football, it's just so, in my opinion, man, I understand that the defensive responsibilities are important. But God, man, can we see some, it just worked. We just saw those three guys on the field, and it worked. We've won a game at home against Football Club de Porto, which I don't remember the last time, but we've seen that. And here we are. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. It just did.
Well, but there's factors, right?
There's factors.
We scored one more than they did. That's the factor.
We scored.
Don't forget that.
We scored the Musa goal, Chris.
Huh?
We scored the Musa goal.
Deflection.
Yeah.
Shit, it went in. Is that what you guys say when it comes to Musa?
Why would it be any different with Di Maria, right?
Look. One thing about me, you guys, you know this by now. If this was like Lady, and I don't want to be disrespectful again. I'm not going to mention any, but if it was a smaller, bro, but against Porto, you take them how you could get them, my man.
Yeah. I get that.
You just take them and run. That's it. I'll be quiet now.
I get that. Yeah, look, I think that football has evolved, but it is something that, and we often hear Pablo Aimar. I absolutely love listening to Pablo Aimar because I think he's so pure in the way that he talks about football, but he talks about the same thing, that you're losing the creativity, you're losing the players that on the street, they're fucking magic, and then they get into these academies. And now all of a sudden they're kind of tied into what they can do in benefit of the team. But anyway, let me get into the game. I thought that Benfica had an excellent start, as they should at home. And then I thought that Porto kind of balanced things out. Porto corrected some markings, but in the 19th minute, the red card, which is perfectly acceptable for me, red card to Fabio Cardoso put us at an advantage with one man. But even with that advantage, after the 20th minute, we really couldn't really do much in the first half. The second half was different, however, and it seemed that Porto, understanding that they couldn't play with the same high lines and pressing Benfica through the rest of the game, Porto lowered their lines and it allowed Benfica to have a lot more of the possession in the second half. And Benfica had some possession. I don't know if a lot of it was significant. There was a time there that between the 53rd minute and the 57th minute where Kokshu hit the upright, and Neres had his goal denied by Claudio Ramos. Was it Claudio Ramos? Their goalie?
Diogo Costa.
For this, Claudio Ramos is the sub. And Otamendi with the cross on a far post that he almost put that away with the side of his foot. We had a good time, but again, this is Porto giving us a lot of the initiative. 66th minute, Cabral in for Musa. 68th minute, we get that goal Di Maria off of a Neres play, and we had been threatening, and it's almost like every time we find the mismatches on the wing. Neres wins the final line, crosses behind, and there's always a guy that's going to show up there. So we had the same play happen a few times before Di Maria put that one away, and I guess we had done enough up until that point to get that goal. But certainly, Dave, what are your thoughts going into the second half playing against 10 men? Did you feel that Benfica had the game under control?
I thought so. I don't want to say I never had any doubts, because you never know. What I was expecting was Benfica to get the another red card in the second half to kind of even it up. So I was waiting for that shoe to drop. But with it being 11v10, I thought I was confident that we would be able to pull out the results. I think Porto was very fortunate not to go down with two red cards there in the first half. I know you kind of skimmed by it.
Yeah, I know. I've been waiting for that, Dave. Like the huge elephant in the room. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
You guys can bring it up
quickly. Yeah, a red card in the 19th minute, totally deserved, and moves right on. But I know we're probably gonna look at it with different colored glasses here. But I think it's a red card too all day, because not that he touches the ball first. I'll acknowledge that, but it's that second leg that comes and takes him out of.
No, I said it was a.
That was intentional.
I said it was a red card, Dave. I don't think that the David Carm's one was as obvious as to warrant a red card.
The only thing I didn't like about it was that he goes to VAR for that one and didn't go for the first one. Where the first one, where it looks very blatant, is in slow motion.
Yeah.
And then when I guess maybe when he saw it the first time, he maybe thinks that he doesn't get a touch on the ball. That Cardozo doesn't get a touch on the ball, and maybe he goes, "Oh, okay, that's why it's definitely a red." He caught him with the trailing leg really high, but in real time, I know we're all saying is like, that's not a red card, man.
No,
that's not a red card. When you see it on the replay, you're like, okay, now I completely get it.
Yeah.
Whereas he made that decision without going to VAR, and the second one where it was, I think you're right, probably wasn't a red, but he went to VAR for it, and I found that weird.
They were both reds, and I'll tell you why they were both reds. On the first call, Steve, I think he didn't go to VAR because he had a good angle. He saw him lift his right leg, and I think that the VAR referee agreed with him. There was no reason. You only go to VAR if one of them is not in agreement. Like, yo, you need to see this. So, like, yo, you got the right call. There's no. And then the second one, I think if they were playing Estrela Amadora, that they get a red, but it's because of Porto. No referee has the balls to give Porto 2 red cards within the first half, and therefore they let him get away with that. And that's why he went to VAR to look for it. But to me, we're talking about, let's not forget, the fastest player on the Benfica roster, if not in Portugal. I don't know, but he's definitely one of the. He's through. He doesn't get to him. He's through on goal. There's no way the other monk was going to catch up to him.
I think it's
clear.
I think it's where he is.
I come on the podcast, I call a spade a spade. I'm not being a Benfiquista, right? You guys know. Again, like, because when that first play against with Cardozo happened, I went on Twitter right away, or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, and I said that's not a red card. Only after I saw 2 replay, I'm like, nah, come on, there was intent.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not being a Benfiquista, but that David Carmo, that Rafa was gone. Now, we all know he would have missed, right? One-on-one.
Too much time to think.
Exactly. But he would have been, come on, there's no way the other guy's going to catch up to him. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm not expecting anything else in a game like this.
Chris, anything else you want to say about these cards or the referee? I'm giving you the floor, Chris. I don't want to skip over you, man. I want you to have your voice.
Oh, you're not skipping over me. You skipped over the fact that, that was one of the most controversial plays of the game.
Not the Cardozo one.
No, to people that understand football, they know it wasn't controversial, but obviously the other guys on the other side, they're still crying about it till today. But I just laughed, and I think Dave caught on to it as well. You just skimmed over it like, oh yeah, there's a banana peel here. Yeah. No,
I thought it was clear. I don't think there's any argument. You can't even. I don't think you could argue that.
But Alfredo, we started the podcast and you saying how you started the podcast, right? We started today's podcast, I should say, with you saying how you started the podcast because a lot of people didn't speak Portuguese and you brought the news. Well, you can't assume that everyone on the chat or listening to us right now or tomorrow or next week, whenever they listen to it, can't assume that they watched the game. So you have to explain to them exactly what happened.
You're right.
And that's what.
Do I need to break it down frame by frame? No, I think everybody. Look, everybody has seen it at this point, right? I don't think there's an argument. The David Karma, I think that the yellow is adjusted, but if it was red, I probably wouldn't have. I wouldn't have argued
it. What about the stomp on Jon Snow?
The stomp on Jon Snow. Look,
But
we
I
see
don't want to
those.
get into this nitpicking
Yeah.
either, because then there's things that could have been called. I
Hey,
think that's
you lost your one game of the year because of a accidental stomp.
Yeah.
But that's it. I feel like that's going to be the theme of this season now. Any stomp now has, if it doesn't go to VAR and something happens where we don't get the result, it's going to be now it's a stomp. I feel like every game now we're looking for a stomp. And really, it's soccer, it's football. A stomp is going to happen whether it's intentional or not. It's going to happen every game. I saw about 2 in the game yesterday against Inter. It's a part of the game.
Did you just find out about Portuguese football yesterday? Like, you just can't you not know that's how Portuguese football. Now every little thing that's a touch, this is how it is. Unfortunately, we all know that a lot of plays that there's contact in football. There's a lot of plays that, listen, it is what it is. To me, there is a very clear distinction between controllable follow through, controllable body motion, and uncontrolled. There's sometimes you can control, and there's other times you can't. Right.
Yeah.
And I think all of that has to come into play here. But unfortunately, the way things are in Portuguese football now, it's no longer about intent. It's no longer about anything else. It's about, well, there's contact, and we've seen the one with Musa where he clearly is going for the ball, steps on the ball, his foot slides off, he gets a red card. And so now, unfortunately, in Portuguese football, we have to play tit for tat.
Yeah, and look, I think that Portuguese refereeing is not the best refereeing in the world as a collective, right? There's guys that have some talent, but the way every play is analyzed and under a microscope, frame by frame, when these guys go into the game, there's so much pressure on them to make the right call that weighs heavy on their mind, and they're always on their toes in terms of the way they referee a game, and oftentimes they probably second guess themselves because of all the pressure that they have, that I have to make the right call because I know that throughout the week, CMTV, TVI, SEEK, whatever, all of these guys, that's all they're going to be talking about. And then the people that see me on the street, they're going to say something. They're going to yell out something. These guys are so pressured by the atmosphere that's been created around them by media, by these shows, that they are almost afraid to make a mistake. And oftentimes that gives way to bad decisions, because you're not thinking clearly, because you're obviously being influenced by or conditioned by something that it's present day in Portugal. There's not one day they don't turn on one of the CMTV and a show like that is going on. So
they put a plate of food in front of you and no estavas e dizia, epá, quem não gosta não come. Right? Hey,
Yeah.
Comes up. If you don't want the pressure, don't become a referee in Portugal, because this is nothing new. I mean, what you expect to come into?
Yeah, but yes, that's fine, Chris. But I think that the league,
You have to get it right. These games mean a lot
Chris,
to teams.
completely understand. But I think the league and the federation have to do a better job to protect referees, right? Which means that anyone that criticizes referees, there's a fine involved. There's heavy measures for public figures that criticize referees. Create a safe environment. It's not acceptable that the Super Dragões go to the estágio, centro de estágio of the referees to pressure the referees. That should never happen. That only happens it probably happens in other countries, but it happened in Portugal. I think that there's talent there's talent there, and I know that there's a lot of background stuff that goes on, but there's some talent. But we also don't foster an atmosphere for these referees to be able to go into a game and not feel that if they make the wrong call, everybody's going to be on top of them, and they won't stop listening for the rest of the week until they ref the next game. And I think that those conditions they're not good for referees to be their best. So I don't know. That's
There's
my
VAR to
opinion.
help you out. When you get a wrong decision, there's always VAR to help you out. But the problem is that those referees are influenced.
Well, the problem is
Like
Let's move
Liverpool.
on. This is not a referee.
the problem is not the VAR. The problem is the guys that are on the VAR. That now it becomes a decision that they may be influenced by that they have to make. So they might be a little biased and make the wrong decision. So I think the VAR is an excellent tool if used properly. And in Portugal, we've seen 3 minutes to look to see if a goal is a goal, if there's an offside, looking at every angle, very long VAR breaks. Sometimes VAR gets it right, the referee gets it. It's just been a shit show in Portugal because they don't know how to use the tool, or there's so much influence and pressure to these referees that they feel conditioned to make the right call or wrong call or whatever. But anyway, I'm on a soapbox a lot today. Just getting back to the game. I agree with Cristiano. A win is a win, and especially against Porto in our house. We need to be beating everyone in our house, regardless who the opponent is. And you got to get it. And I thought that Porto definitely suffered because of going down to 10 men. But I also think that Sergio Conceição was a little bit too conservative in the second half, and I think that's what kind of did him in because they could barely breathe. I don't know, Cristiano. More thoughts on the game? Are you just happy that we grabbed the win?
Here's a huge thought. And I said this right after the game. Very important that it seems to me that Benfica has finally. And I'm saying finally, after a very long time, found themselves a goalkeeper.
Já lá chegamos, pá.
What?
Já lá chegamos, but you said that he definitely proved himself in this game.
I'm giving you thoughts on the game. Olha.
He had a much better game against Inter.
Fine, but it's not about having a great game. It's about what he did in the game. First, he comes out for that one ball on Taremi.
Yeah.
Perfect placement. Was able where the other guy, without saying anybody's name, would have been stuck to the goal line right now. He's still there.
He would have came out and he would have fouled the guy after the ball had gone by.
The other thing he did very well was on a couple occasions comes out, catches the cross. If you recall, in the second half, Porto was putting in a little bit of pressure after we're up 1-0, 1-0, whatever the British want, whatever, 1-0. And there's a ball into the 6. And he comes out and he catches it rather than punching it away, giving possession back to the opposition, which then will put us back under pressure. I've always hated that about goalkeepers. And he seems like at least he's got a brain and he alleviates the pressure from his own teammates by securing the ball, keeping it in possession, let everybody breathe, get the heart rate down, and let's go. We move it forward. So that's the caliber of goalkeeper that I've always said Benfica needs. There's a difference between playing on a small club team and on a big team. And I understand Benfica throughout European football in terms of today's day and age, they might be, a minnow, but in Portugal, they're still the Giants. And they play that commanding, that dominating possession game, and the goalkeeper needs to be able to come out, needs to be able to play with his feet. And I think it's very important that he does those things. And so to me, whether he had a better game or not against Inter, the point is that he needed to get comfortable.
Yep.
And I think in the previous game, saving that penalty gave him that breather, gave him that confidence that I could play at this level. And then going into a game like Fridays against Futebol Clube do Porto, it is massive pressure on a young goalkeeper, and I think he passed with flying colors. Therefore, it elevated him, and it the little jump that he needed, the kickstart that he needed to have an exceptional game in the next game. But we'll get into that game a little bit later on. But yeah, I thought that was usually important for his confidence, and I'm just ecstatic that we have this caliber player, and I just expect him to get better.
Yeah, Steve, aside from playing against 10 men, what was some of the things that Benfica did well against this Porto team to get the win?
I have at least one player that I really want to talk about in that game. I mean, when your whole team looks to an 18-year-old kid, is he 19 now? I think it might be 19.
He just turned 19
last week.
He just turned 19. but that kid has, and the kid I'm talking about is João Neves. He's the guy who can play all 4 phases of the game, like I was talking earlier. But he has that extra bit on the emotional side that not everybody has. I mean, we look at this team and you look at who the leaders are, and 2 of them are like under 22. How old's
19.
Antonio Silva now?
19.
Antonio Silva is also 19. So you have 2 19-year-olds came through the youth ranks, really feel and breathe the club, and Otamendi. Between those 3 guys, they have all the tools mentally to play in these kinds of games, where we have other guys that don't. And I think that having them on the team is probably one of what I noticed the most in the second half, because previously we would always get bossed around by the Otavios of the world and all the other punk players that they had. But those 3 guys, they puff their chests out and they can handle it. And I think that's something that we didn't have previously. And I'd like to go to Dave real quick, because I forget stats, but I think since Schmidt came along, what are we, 3 out of 5 or 4 classic? 3 out of 4 Classicos. And for me, one of the common denominators with Schmidt is Antonio Silva. And now I think João Neves is going to just only add to that. I think, I don't want to say there's been a change of the chip, but there's definitely, okay, we're not the badasses that Porto are. I mean, like, I still don't know how that they could play at such a tempo and create so many 1v1 battles across the whole pitch. I mean, they did it again today with Barcelona. I don't know how they do that. But I think, at least in terms of attitude and personality, with those 3 guys, we're going in the right direction. And to go back to Trubin, I think having a goalkeeper with that kind of stature, big guy, doesn't make any mistakes, that's also going to help us going forward. I like the way we're matched up against Porto now compared to where we were a few years ago. That's another truth. That's another truth. They've lost players and they're having a harder time filling in the gaps than we are from the players that we lost, I think.
Yeah.
And even with this Porto todo roto, without Pep, without this, without that, we come away with the 1-0 victory. Really created 3 scoring opportunities the whole game. Besides that, it was a whole lot of gibberish, left and right, crosses, lost possession. We did not dominate the game as much as we should have, considering it's a weak Porto and considering they were down 10 men at the 19th minute mark. I thought Benfica could have played better. I think they could have obviously inflate the score. Like, obviously something we would love, right, for them to inflate the scoreboard. But I think at the same time, like Mestizi, first you crawled and you walked and you run, and I'm just glad that, we finally beat these guys at home, and we're starting a little streak here. As you mentioned, 3 out of 4. It's good. I'd rather be on that end playing bad and being 3 out of 4 than playing good and being 1 for 4. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I didn't think that after the goal that Porto was even able to get some kind of response. They tried through Galeno, but he was always extremely isolated on the wing. Yeah,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, but he was the only guy really that could create a little bit of a danger. The other thing that I find funny is just the one center back that came in. I forget what his name is. He's 26 years old and he's been playing for the B team. And people are already talking on the media. Oh, this guy is gonna be good. He's fucking 26 years old, man. If he hasn't made the main team, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it now. But
was he at Amadora last year? Some Estoril.
He was on loan, but he's 26 years old. You can't really consider him like a newcomer, like a rookie, like a guy that has a future ahead of him.
Don't mess it up for his old guys, man. Age ain't nothing but a number.
But look, I thought that there was a good second half for Benfica. Benfica went after the goal, and I think that after that we kind of just manage it. Like Cristiano says, we have to crawl before we walk, and certainly getting that goal and ensuring that you were going to come away with a favorable result. I think it was the main priority. You don't want to expose yourselves too much. Dave, stats on this game so we can move on to the next game.
Yeah, first time since the 94-95 season that Porto has had a player sent off with a red card in consecutive games against Benfica.
Say that again, Dave. Since when?
Since the 94-95 season.
A lot
first
of
time
our listeners weren't even born yet. Jesus.
Yep. 13 years that Benfica have beaten Porto in consecutive matches. So after the Supertaça and now this one here. And first time in 40 years that we've beaten Porto 3 out of the 4 last meetings there. So we like to say history hasn't been on our side a lot of these times playing against those guys, but hopefully the tides are turning.
Yeah. Looking at the goal point stats, and Benfica basically dominated Porto on every category. Remates, shots on goal, actions in the opponent's box, corners, pass efficiency on vertical passes, post ball possession 61 to 39. But it's expected, right? You're playing against 10 men in your stadium. It's expected. So good win for Benfica, and we definitely needed to eliminate some of the deficit that we had to Porto with our loss in the first game of the season. And we keep track with Sporting now. We're 2 points behind Sporting, Dave, or 1 point?
1 point.
1 point behind Sporting. So, turning our attention now to match day 2 of the Champions League. Benfica went to Italy to play Inter. Look, I think that we had a lot of expectations in terms of this game. And Steve, it was something that we were talking about before we came on. Was that something that you wanted to touch on? And I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts also, right? Because the biggest thing was that we built this great team last year. We went deep into Europe. We had a great run, and we kind of only saw some of the weaknesses and team faltering towards the end of the season. But we qualified first in the group stages. We're thinking that this year, despite losing Gonçalo Ramos, we kept most of and Grimaldo, we kept most of the core, even though we've been having issues at the left back position. Well, not Auschwitz, but you know what I mean. What is the difference between the Benfica of last year and the Benfica of this year?
If I really had to choose one, I never thought it would be him. But Gonçalo Ramos is a big miss right now. Chris doesn't like it defending from the front and attackers defending. I know he doesn't. But there's that. Key point to the way we played last year was how well we pressed the ball when we won it back. And there's also ataque a profundidade, so attacking the space behind the defenders. When we play without a striker, yeah, Rafa has a lot of pace, but he wants the ball at his feet all the time. It's rare that he tries to make a run behind the defenders. And when you don't have somebody that's going to play behind them, you don't get that space. So if the defenders, especially with 3 guys at the back, if they're scared that you're going to play behind them, they're going to take either a few steps back and allow for a little bit more space in between lines where you can get your Di Maria to play, where you can get your Neres to play, João Mario, whoever. If they know that play is not coming, they could step, let's say, 10 yards further forward and compact that area, make it even tighter and harder to play in. So that's, for me, I never thought, because I never really rated him. I don't think he's not a matador like you guys always said, because you even used to say on the podcast last year that if we had a matador, we'd probably be in the finals of the Champions League last year, and we didn't get there. But I think that those 2 components of his game are something that we don't have anywhere else in the lineup. Musa's not very good. Doesn't make the runs that Gonçalo makes. He doesn't win the ball back high up the pitch that Gonçalo used to do, or at least force errors the same way. He's a bit more big, kind of not as slow as our other center forward, but it's a different kind of player, right? He wants to back into players, maybe play 1-2s, that kind of stuff. Where Gonzalo was making runs in behind the fullbacks, always keeping the defense honest. And I think that's probably the biggest miss that we have. And I think you guys are saying, going to say it's like, when is he going to find a balance? But I think Roger Smith is still trying to find the balance in the front six players. I mean, we know who our back four is. Like, well, it's the three that we know, and then hopefully now is going to be it's going to be Bernat. So that he's got settled. It's the guys in front of him that I think he's still trying to figure out how to make all those pieces work. And I sometimes wonder that, okay, Di Maria is clutch. He is the best player in Portugal, technique and talent-wise, but I think he's still having a hard time figuring out how to get him in the lineup, plus the other guys that gave him some of the joys that we had last year. And I think that's probably, I think he's going to get there, but it's still going to take a few more weeks of trying a few different things out. I could tell you one thing, though. The striker list thing that we did against Inter, that's not the way. We tried it for the first half versus Porto in the Super Cup, and that should have been enough to see that just doesn't work for us. We don't have that out ball. Like, even if Musa isn't the best player, if you're stuck and if you can get a ball somewhere near him, he's going to try to hunt it down and make it hard for the center backs. We were just too easy to play against yesterday without that reference point. Yeah. And I hope we don't see that again. I hope we don't see a strikerless Benfica again.
Yeah, so we lined up with Trubin, Ba, Otamendi, Muratu, and Bernat. Of course, Tony Silva couldn't play as a result of picking up a red card against Salzburg. Neves, Auschnitz, and Kokshu in the middle. Di Maria, Rafa, and Neres. Cristiano, were you surprised not to see a striker up there?
Was I? No. To be
you weren't surprised?
I was. No, I mean, because we've seen Roger, as Steve said, did it in Supertaça. In a game like yesterday, I think Benfica wanted to apply pressure. I think Benfica wanted to keep the ball, maybe get Rafa and the defenders through a through ball, the whole nine. And look, in the first half, you can say what you want. It actually, his plan worked. Where you can criticize Roger is he's starting to get that nickname for me that I'm not a fan of, which is Sleepy Roger. You already have Sleepy Neres, right? And now it looks like he wants to take his nickname away from him. Because in the first half, at least for that first, it worked. We played well. We had created a few chances. But, sometimes you have to learn how to read the game, and I don't think he did that well. But, no, I was not surprised, to be honest.
Yeah. I thought it was a good first 12 minutes for Benfica. I thought the team was confident. They were combining well. They were finding the passes. There was movement. There was that shot by Auschnitz in the 12th minute. Who was it? Ba found him on a long throw behind the defense, and he was on goal, and he just encheu o pé, but it was a good save by the keeper.
And what bothers me, Alfredo?
What's that?
Sorry to cut you off. No, you know what bothers me, man. And I sat here politely. Steve saying, that the guy still hasn't found his balance. He's looking for his what players that, bro. All these guys at this point are guys that he requested, that he himself asked the club to purchase, because I'm guessing, right? I mean, I'm not the smartest guy here, but I'm guessing because he figured they fit into his system, right? They fit into the type of game he wants to play. And now he's struggling to find who he wants to play. I mean, dude, he's been here long enough. Figure it out. And at the end of the day, I don't understand. This is why I interrupted you here. I do not understand spending $30 million, or euros, I should say, which is more than dollars, on a player like Koksu to then play Auschnitz in the midfield with him as the guy more advanced. in an attacking role. I don't get it. I do not understand. Koksu, to me, has not lived up to expectations. He's had moments here and there, but so far, I think he's been a disappointment. We're talking about the most expensive player in the history of Portuguese football. And I understand the last guy that was the most expensive footballer in the history of Portuguese football did not have a stellar first year, which was Darwin Nunez. And I'm trying to give people time. Same thing with a Cabral, who is not hit the ground running.
007 Cabral.
But he's not. But he's not playing. Now, Koksu is a key player on this team who is getting minutes. Is he getting minutes because of the price tag? Is he getting minutes because his playing warrants that time? And to me, I think that Roger is clearly, just my opinion, he's clearly not getting the best out of Koksu because he's not playing them where Koksu should be playing. Auschner should be the guy cleaning up.
Let me counterpoint that to you, Chris. I think that Koksu is much better building than Auschner is. And I think that's where the decision lies to have, because Auschner could cover a lot of ground. He's smart. He could read the game. He could press. He can understand the pressing timings. And I think that Koksu is more of a guy that's going to build from the back, much like Neves.
Fine, Alfredo, fine. But there's a reason why you're playing Neves there as well. You have Neves. It's not like you're playing Koksu alongside Florentino. If you did, then I'm with you. But you have you have Jon Snow over there because of that. And Jon Snow could take control, could take the duties of building in the first, whatever sector. And then you have a guy who you look at his highlights who's scoring goals from outside the box, taking chances on goal, beating people. You don't see any of that because he's playing too far from where he needs to play. You can have both of those guys in the game simultaneously, building building the game from different sectors. I don't understand. Like, let's not act like Koksu is Enzo Fernandez, because what they said is the replacement. Enzo Fernandez was a organizador do jogo. Koksu is not that player. He's got capability of spreading the ball, going to get it, launching long passes. But he is not a guy that controls the game like a Enzo Fernandez. Right, Fernandez.
I will disagree with you there a little bit, Chris.
That's
but
fine.
But I think that it goes back to what Steve was saying, that Roger Schmidt is still looking to find that balance from the back line forward. There's still a balance. And look, it's all good problems to have, right? You have guys on the bench. Florentino should be in. Jornef should be in. Koksu should be sitting on the bench. All of these guys are good options, right? I think that sometimes we tend to split hairs a little bit in terms of who's better. I think it becomes something of what does the game demand, right? What does the game ask for? I'm not of the same opinion of Koksu. I think that there's talent there for Koksu.
Wait, hold on, Alfredo. Did I say there was no talent?
No, you said that he's been a disappointment for you.
And you don't think he's been a disappointment?
Not for me.
No. I will say he had a very bad match against Inter, but that was his worst match by far.
But
So,
Steve,
you spent $30 million for him to perform against Estoril or to perform in the Champions League?
but Chris, we shouldn't really value a player based on what we paid for them.
So I mean,
Then think of all the guys that teams in the world have spent many euros on, and that have not played up to their expectations.
I'll tell you what I told you about Darwin. Bro, you can't compare other teams. Benfica doesn't have the luxury to go spend $30 million on a guy and have him be a flop.
But Chris, you also got to understand that it's the market that.
I didn't say he's a flop. I'm just saying, because Alfredo said teams have spent money on guys that become flops. And I'm saying Benfica doesn't have that luxury. And Koksu is not played to the level that we all expected him to play. And if you think he has, then I don't know what to tell you guys.
But yeah, Chris, understand. I think that, yes.
He's had very poor games. Not just one. He's had very poor games.
I lost my train of thought.
No,
Chris, let me just jump in. I think because of the number he wears and because of what you've seen him do in the highlights, you're expecting him to play a different role for this club. The way that we will play 90% of our matches, he's in a good spot. He dictates the rhythm of the game. He knows where to pass the ball, what weight, to who. He's in the right spot. I just think that you're probably wanting to see a guy making plays in the final third where, sure, I get it. And a $30 million player, you want to see goals, you want to see through balls. But I think he's still playing at the level that that we can expect of him at that price tag. It's just in a different role. Roger he wants to play with two weights in his double pivot. That's what's down to.
You're playing with a kid from the B team who just turned 19, as you guys said a few minutes ago, that is getting man of the match after man of the match, right? And you're talking about you're content with the guy that spent $30 million. That just look, he's not playing. He hasn't been a bidon d'oro like they call it in Serie A, right? But yeah, come on, guys, he's not.
But you can't.
Enzo, and it's unfair to compare him to Enzo because Enzo is Enzo. Enzo came in, my man hit the ground running. Enzo was one of the greatest contratações we've had in years. Even though now Shikadan is a better player, but Enzo was the man. Enzo came in and he set the room on fire. But I like Koksu. I'm a defender of Koksu. I just think Koksu is being played in the wrong role. I don't think Koksu has been as consistent in what we expected. I think he's obvious. I said he's had great flashes. He's done things well. I didn't say he was a bum. But to me, he is not a true 8 like a Enzo. I think he's a guy that plays a little bit further up the field. And I think that's why we haven't seen him be his best, because I think he's too worried about coming back, tracking back, getting in the defensive position, getting in a position to get the ball. When you have Jon Snow there for that exact reason.
Chris, I just hear me. I want to hear you out.
I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet.
No. What's your 11 for Benfica?
No, I put Koksu in.
Yeah, but how?
Like my 11 for Benfica. My 11 for Benfica. Look, I think the Freddy's gonna have a heart attack. So if you guys hear the ground shaking, guys, it's just the Freddy's falling, collapsing. But as much as it pains me to say it, right? On this team, the way that this team plays, and with the chances that we take with the tries and everybody get involved in the attack, which is a good flow. We love attacking football. Bro, Florentino has to play. And if you don't think Florentino plays, that's fine. Go get a defensive midfielder that has those characteristics that could put a ball in play. Okay? That's on you. It's not my job to come here and tell you to get. But I could tell you to get. There's Redondo in Argentina. He's available. And there's a few other guys you could get to play that pivot role. Okay? Florentino has to play. You play Florentino alongside Jon Snow. Okay? And then you can make it. You still playing the 4-2-3-1. But if you asking me, I would actually turn it probably into a 4-3-3. That's what I would do. But yeah, you're going to have to make a tough decision. Rafa's going to have to come off, or Neres is going to have to come off. But if you want to play in the mold that he's playing out in a 4-2-3-1, this is what I would do. I would try it out because I am a believer. I am a firm believer. When you spend money on a player, you have an obligation to put that player in the best position possible to get the max out of him. That's why I can't stand Atletico Madrid for spending $130 million on João Felix and not trying to mold them into something else, bro. Like you spend money on players because you love the way they play, and then you want to change their game. And so, to me, what I would do is I would play 4-2-3-1, just aligned with what he's been doing. I'd play. You ready for this? Alderson is at right back. Because Ba is a bum. I said it last year, and he had a decent year. Now this year he's back to being a bum, and now everybody's finally seen the light. So Alson is Trubin, obviously I don't have to. Alson right back, Silva, Otamendi, Bernat, Tino, Jon Snow, Di Maria on the right, Koksu behind the striker, and then flip a coin between Neres and Rafa. I'm one of the few that believes that Rafa's best suited to play on the wing. He is, as you said, he needs the ball on his feet, yada, yada. He is not fit to play in between two centrais, in my opinion. I think he's better at just going down the wing, getting the ball. You got space to run. So flip the coin. You're going to have one of those guys is going to sit. But I would give Koksu an opportunity to be comfortable. Do what you got. 5-6 game run. And then if you're still not performing to the level that we expected, then, my man, já teve oportunidades agora. Maybe I got to try something else. But that's what I would do, Steve. That would be my 11.
I don't argue with that.
I don't have arguments against it either, really. I don't think that's the biggest of our problems is where Koksu is playing. That's where I was.
What do you see our biggest problem?
Our biggest problem right now
is that balance in the front line. Is
that
finding
balance in the front line and the striker. Yeah, I don't think we can carry. I don't think we can carry too many passengers that don't defend, quote unquote, that don't react to when they lose the ball. So you can only play, for me, of the three, Rafa, Neres, and Di Maria, you can only play two. Then that's pushing it. I still think that somewhere, and then Chris is going to hate to hear this, but somewhere in the balance that we're missing is a drop in form from João Mario, and now he's riding the pine because of it. Because with João Mario, you don't have Ginga, you don't have explosiveness. But João Mario is a man that knows the moments of the game. He knows when he needs to step on the ball and make sure he doesn't lose it. He knows that, okay, if it looks like we're about to lose the ball here, so I need to go and fill this space here so that Porto or whoever can't get out there. So if we lose the ball high in the right corner and I'm on the left flank, I know I got to come quickly to make the third man in midfield to help out the two central midfielders. Another thing that Arshness is really good at. I think that our reaction to losing the ball and trying to keep teams pinned in there is one of the things that we used to do very well last year that we don't do well this year. And that is a key to Schmidt's game. And that is something that have not been able to do well this year at all. I think if games are stretched, we have talented players that will make the difference. But when games are tight against good teams or against teams that sit a lot of players at the back, I think that moment where they win the ball back is when they're most vulnerable. And we need to be able to win that ball back quickly, and we're not anymore. And I think that's where it is.
Here's a great opportunity to do something we haven't done today yet. Well, we did it earlier, but we haven't done it in a while. And plus, they agree with me, so it makes me happy to remember. But Nick Villadon says, I agree with we spent the money on Koksu for matches like yesterday. But in his defense, I don't think Benfica as a whole have clicked yet. I think it's best yet to come. Bruno Teixeira Smith is looking like even worse. Hugo Freire Koksu spent 30 million. Koksu at 30 million needed to be a difference maker right away, and he hasn't been. I'm hoping he still will be down the stretch. Red Baron, who's a host here, was on with us a few weeks ago. Says I agree with Chris. He's not a flop, but I certainly expected more of him. Jason Gandola Koksu seems more of a B2M mid.
Box to box.
Yeah. Who plays higher? Nick Villadon, in my opinion, Koksu should be a 10 role. We're pushing Rafa to the wings. Rafa commits so many mistakes. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, there's so many comments. But look, I'm not saying the guy's a flop. By any stretch of the imagination, I'm a defender. I like the guy. But it just, I don't think he's been what we all expected him. And hopefully things will change. And I understand everything you're saying, Steve. But if you really want to balance and you really want to have that responsibility in the middle of the park in order to get that, Florentino's your answer.
Yeah.
Covers up a lot of holes.
He allows, I'm not against that, Chris. I'm not against it.
He allows the Jon Snow, a Koksu, the freedom. You know what I'm saying? Because that guy, he's standing there. He's not going anywhere. He's not getting involved in the attack. So and now our Ba or even Aursnes, you saw Aursnes in the game before Benfica gave up a goal. He's way out of position at right back. We all like him. He's a Swiss Army knife. The guy does a little bit of everything, but it's not beyond them to make the occasional positioning mistake at left back or a right back, and it's understandable because that's not his natural position. I get it. But now it allows our fullbacks, again, whether it's Aussus, Bob, Bernard, Jurassic, because Tino's there. Now you really could always convert to three at the back, slide them in between, Otamendi and Silva. It gives you different looks. Now, when you have Koksu and Neves in the middle, bro, it's just about possession. That's all it's about. And Neves, bro, my man's heart, bless his heart. That little kid, I don't know where he looks like he belongs in kindergarten with my daughter, but my man, can he play? He has got a motor. And so much so in his game against Inter, for example, late in the game after Bifana comes into the game, I'm like, wow, Bifana's actually pressing the goal. And then I'm like, wait, that's not Bifana. That's Ron Neves. In the 80-something minute, the dude's got to pull him out, bro, and credit to him. And it's criminal. It's criminal to bench that kid and bring in a Tino. He has to play as well. So I'm trying to look at the best solution to have a Koksu on the field, to have an Neves on the field, to have a Florentino on the field. Something has to change. And then I'm always of the opinion that you as a coach, it is your responsibility to put me in the best position possible to get the best out of me. That's your responsibility. That's what you do as a coach. And that's the difference between the Pep Guardiola's, which you're a huge fan of, that is still succeeding in European football today. And Jose Mourinho, who's playing with he's soon to be playing with Camel because you can't adapt.
Hey guys, one of the things that I wanted to say is that in terms of the markets, you guys know that Benfica doesn't play in the same markets as everyone else, right? Every player that's associated to Benfica is automatically inflationed because of the sales that Benfica has had. Clubs know that Benfica has money, so. Is Koksu really worth 30 million? And if you're going to look at what he's performed, what he's done so far, he's not really worth 30 million. But is 30 million a real valuation for Koksu, for a guy that was playing at Feyenoord just last season? So keep that in mind, right? The same thing with Jurassic. How in the world is Jurassic worth 14 million? Nowhere is that guy worth 14 million. So think through that, because as we're looking at how much money Benfica has spent on these guys, and that money now is like, well, if we spent 30 million on Koksu, like Hugo says, he's a guy that needs to come in and make an impact right away. But the markets are what they are, and with Benfica
but Alfredo, on the other hand, they found the gem in Arsenal for 15 mil. So I mean, it goes both ways.
Right. Is that how much we paid for Aursnes? 15 mil, or was it 8?
Yes. 15 mil. And then you look at it on the other side. To you're saying automatically becomes inflated. Well, if you go speak to Feyenoord fans or Dutch football fans, they all thought Benfica fleeced them because they thought the guy was worth a lot more. Well, you recall that, right? And there was program Van Basten. There was programs. How does this guy leave for 30 million?
I mean,
yes and no. There's a little bit of both. There's a little bit of truth, but there's also, look, you're smart. Do your scouting, right? And you could find good players for a nice price.
And one of the biggest things that, when there was known about Koksu was that Koksu was the best box-to-box player in Europe outside the Big Five.
And he won the Player of the Year in the division, which is in the Euro division, whatever it is, 6th ranked league. So, I mean, obviously, there's expectations.
But all of this...
I'm still hoping he's coming around. I think he has the ability to come around, Alfredo.
Yeah. All of this for what? That we're trying to avoid talking about the second half against...
Sheikh Marcelin says Sheikh Marcelin Koksu is a glorified Chiquinho.
Come on, Shiku. You're better than that, Shiku.
Alfredo, last comment on the first half, and this can't go unnoticed once again. Dave, man, hop in with these stats. These ain't stats. These is just Cristiano Oliveira's mind speaking out loud. I've said this on this podcast years after year that you guys know how much I despise our rivals in Portugal, but I've said this for years that Portuguese teams, they get jobbed in European competitions. We always see Porto last year against Atletico, Sporting a few years ago against Schalke, and it's Benfica last year, a clear penalty against Gonçalo Ramos. Now we see it again. We see a David Neres is clearly being taken out in the box in a play that could have very well given Benfica the 1-0 lead, and now it changes the whole game. As you read the baller the day coming into the game, Fabio Capello, my man, AC Milan, Rossoneri, said Inter Milan do not like to play with the ball on their feet. They like to sit back. And now Benfica takes that lead. It changes the whole game. Now Inter has to come out where they're not comfortable, brings them out of their comfort zone, changes the whole game. That play doesn't even go to VAR. And now this is a credit to Hugo Ferreira, who's going crazy on the chat. But Hugo brought this up to me the other day when the list came out for the referee. And he said, how does UEFA send a referee from whatever you're, the Netherlands, Space Bush, Space Alts, whatever, I call it Holland, right? From Holland, which is a league that is in direct competition with the Portuguese league for that huge $100 million spot for the Champions League. It just, even if the guy comes in and does no mistakes, it just leaves the door open for that little, back and forth, that, coincidence or whatever it may be, right? And there's no need for that. And then you see him, he refed us last year, he was poorly. And now, again, that's a clear penalty. And Portuguese clubs keep getting jobbed. It's not just Benfica. There are clear penalties that go ignored when it comes to Portuguese teams. And it's been going on. And I speak to other fans like, oh, Portuguese guys always complain about the refs. I mean, do you not watch the same game I watch? Can any of us here or the Freddies tell me that's not a clear penalty on David Neres? How does that not even go to VAR? You came up with VAR exactly for plays like that. So the referee missed it. Fine. I understand. Hey, sometimes shit happens. What, the VAR guy missed it too? This game wasn't at Stadio do Dragão, right, where they pulled the cord, right? This is a San Siro, right? I mean, they missed that too? Come on, bro. That one play could have changed the whole game.
I get it. I get your point. I just think that maybe you guys are overthinking it a little bit too much with the Dutch connection. But then again,
I know, but it leaves the conspiracy there.
No, for sure, for sure.
Why even put that? Why leave that grain out there? Right? Just make no doubt. Yo, there's referees from all over the world.
Yeah.
Send them.
Yeah. First,
you talk like a true referee, Alfredo.
First half finishes with Inter with 5 shots, Benfica with 3, 2 of them on goal. Same thing for Inter. 48% possession for Inter, 52 possession for Benfica. And I thought that Inter had a little flurry towards the end of the half, that they could have gotten something in there. But the story is really going into the second half, and Sleepy Roger seeing what was going on in those first 10 minutes of the second half and not making an adjustment. Inzaghi, is it Inzaghi? Yeah, it's Simone, sorry. He read the game, gave instructions to his team. This Inter team was very different than the first half. And I think that Roger, once again, failed to get a read on the game and failed to make the changes when he needed to make them. And I think that is one of the reasons why Benfica suffered so much in the second half. Dave, what did you think? Did you just turn off the second half at halfway after the Inter goal and said, screw this, I'm just going to go get some ice cream?
Even before that Inter goal, Dumfries alone could have had 2 goals in the first half, missed a golden opportunity in the second half, could have had a hat-trick himself. We're very fortunate that Lautaro Martinez didn't come with his finishing boots. I thought I was watching a young Darwin out there with how he played with us the first season. Made everything right leading up to the play, but lacked finishing. So this 1-0 scoreline is very fortunate for us, especially, and Trubin saved us a lot in this game. I know Steve wanted to talk about Trubin, but I think where we really dropped the ball, where Roger dropped the ball here, when Ba goes out, and I know he has to have Arshnitz in his starting 11, that's where you got to slide Arshnitz back there and put in your proper number 9 striker there. But
you'd be affecting the game plan too much, Dave. You'd be touching too much of the game plan.
What were we doing with no proper striker up there? Those guys were all occupying
that's the game plan.
And then so he went there not to lose, basically, I guess, with that strategy. He went there for a draw, where I felt that was a perfect time to drop Arshness back. He's already had some experience playing in there, and then that's your perfect opportunity to slide in your number 9. And instead he puts Tomas Araujo in there, and God bless his heart, like it's his debut and playing out of position. But I think that's where we lost the game, and that's ultimately where Inter targeted us in the second half.
The problem with Araujo was that he was often 2 for 1, mismatched, because there was no one tracking back and helping him. And look, go ahead, Steve.
I was thinking the same thing. When Ba goes down, I was like, okay, what are we going to do here? For me, I also was thinking, okay, Arshness is going to go to right back, and maybe Jean-Marie, if we're going to go kind of for a more like for like.
Yeah.
But I think the role that Arshness was playing, if you watched him, he was third man in midfield, and he was wide left for basically for as long as his legs could do it. I think with the second half that came, Inter just demolished us because he no longer had the leg to do it, and the team was just suffocated. But I think, like Alfredo said, that was too key of a role in his game plan at that point to ditch it, and that's why. That's really what it came down to. But the worst thing for me was just how comfortable Inter looked in the second half. We were just always just pinned back. Their center backs could step way into midfield. They were just so comfortable. I think without somebody to attack their back line, it's just too easy at that level. We can't play strikerless. We could play strikerless if one of the 4 or 3 guys is constantly running in behind, constantly making them think twice. If we're going to play in front of them, forget the strikerless formation. I mean, all of the false 9 idea was always because, okay, the center backs have nobody to cover, so we're going to sneak in a guy from the wing running in behind them so that this false 9 can play to them. To play with Rafa and just expect him to pick up the ball and run at these guys, he never even picked up the ball. We couldn't even ever find him. It was, that was the miss on my side, is that we couldn't play strikerless. We don't have the players for it.
I just thought that Inzaghi saw where the holes were, and he found a way to get guys in there. Whether it was stretching Benfica at times and then pulling one of the midfielders in between the fullback and the defensive midfielder and find those little pockets of space. And Benfica just really couldn't get anything out of the back. They couldn't build out of the back. It was always a clearance that ended up at Inter's feet, and Inter just kept coming. Roger Schmidt would have changed after the goal in the 68th minute, with Chiquinho coming in for Rafa and then Musa coming in for Kokshu. So you didn't have a center forward to start, but you actually finished the game with 2 center forwards. So go figure that. But Chiquinho, I thought that Tino would have probably been perfect to come in on that time, because we weren't able to get any balls, to break up any play in that midfield, because Inter was basically doing everything that they wanted around Benfica. Pockets of space. It was almost like a training drill. I don't know. I was so disheartened by this Benfica performance, taking away a couple players, but it was just not good. It was not good. Chris, what say you?
No, listen, I told you guys before going live that what's the point of having Tino on this roster if you're not going to play him in a game like this? I thought that game in the second half, 5 minutes into the second half, screamed, "Fluted Tino!"
And maybe that's what the crowd needs to do.
It kept coming through my TV speakers, "Fluted Tino!" And it was like, all right, Roger, what's up? And I just, Hugo made the argument with me that at the time when he brought in Chiquinho that they're losing already 1-0, so he's trying to give another guy to get possession and another guy that could go forward and open up some. But come on, that dude got the first 67 pass attempts wrong. I mean, he's just not the player anybody thinks he is. And Tino, to me, I've said this over and over. I mean, I think the thing I most repeated tonight is Florentino allows the players around him to be free. It allows João Neves to get more involved into play. It allows it's just I don't understand why Tino doesn't play in a game like this where we're just being overrun, bro. It was bombardment after. It looked like one of them. No, I don't want to use that term because that's a stupid example. Then somebody's going to cancel me. But yeah, it just looked like a wave after wave. Okay, coming one after another, and we're just like, "Tá bem, beleza, bora."
Yeah,
we're gonna keep trying this until they score, and that's exactly what happened. We see this all the time. Bro, it wasn't a matter of if. I'm watching that game, and I'm praying. I'm on my hands and knees with rosaries and candles, the whole nine, right? But it wasn't a matter of if Inter was going to score. I was hoping it never happened, right? But it was a matter of when.
Yeah.
It was coming. It was post. It was crossbar. Bro, they threw the whole enchilada at Benfica. And Rodgers with the duck lips like, well, hey, look at the bright side. They've done everything they can, but they haven't scored yet.
Yeah.
So this is at some point they're gonna run out of ammo. So the bombardment's gonna stop, but it didn't. And so to me, it screamed Florentino.
No, it just Sleepy Roger. I mean, how are you witnessing that? You have the best seat in the house, sideline, and you're seeing this along with the guy you probably have on the rafters that's communicated down to the technical staff and seeing this. His technical staff seeing this, and how is nobody telling the guy, hey, we need to do something about this? Because if we don't, it's only a matter of time until they score. And sure enough, it was a matter of time until they scored. Like Cristiano said, it was only a matter of when, not if they were going to score. And even his substitutions, I thought his substitutions were inconsequential. Musa up front, which is somebody now, but now it's a little too late. And Chiquinho for Rafa, just didn't get that. And then leaving Di Maria on the field. What does Di Maria have to do to be taken off? Does he not understand that the guy is now spring chicken anymore?
With an injury.
He answered that.
No, but yes, with an injury, right?
That's what he had to do.
But the thing is that clearly, the guy is gassed. He's gassed out. How are you not making that change? I just don't get it.
And yet, some way, some crazy way, somehow, we still had an opportunity to walk away with a point, but Bifana shanks the one shot he's had all year on goal.
007, Cabral.
But yeah, I mean,
Anthony Cabral.
Artur.
This reeks
Artur.
of the monk.
Sorry.
This reeks of the Monku Masters all over again,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, but look, it wasn't the best performance by Benfica, and we're lucky that we weren't really embarrassed. But certainly, if you saw that second half, it was the scoreline does not tell the same story that as if you were watching it, and it was pitiful, right? And you go from the campaign that you had last year, albeit you had a guy that was a major presence and a major influence in what we did in the first round of the Champions League, and I'm talking about Enzo, obviously. But you lose against Salzburg at the Luge, and now you go to Inter, and Inter is probably an expected loss. But to perform the way you did, this is a Benfica team, the way we perform in the second half, this team does not belong in the Champions League. I'm sorry, man. But it's just not a team that has aspirations to go far in the Champions League. You can't have this type of performances. I'm sorry, it's just amateur, and both the team and Roger are at fault. I think that Roger more because he wasn't able to read the game and make the changes that could kind of stabilize things, give Benfica the ball a little bit, give Benfica a little bit of the possession, so it takes away a little bit of the pressure. I think that Roger didn't read the game well. Sleepy Roger. And I think that time and time again, we're seeing this.
For me, that's the one huge concern. Roger's not been on his game. Roger's clearly gotten stuck in last season around after the Porto game. He's still stuck there, where he wasn't making moves at the time, but we gave him a little bit of leeway because there weren't that many options, and the club is clearly not rebounded from that loss against Porto, and then back-to-back losses against Inter in the quarterfinals of a Champions League. To me, I think they've struggled to regain their momentum. They've struggled to regain their mojo. Obviously, Benfica lost very crucial players in Gonçalo Ramos, who we've criticized, but we also at the same time understood and grew to like his effort and understood his plan or his style or why he was used on this team because of his work rate. That's something that, I think every professional should always do, but I think that was his biggest positive, is that the kid never stopped, and therefore he scored a lot of goals. We lost like a crucial guy in Grimaldo, who's been in the house. I think he's the longest tenured player on the team, right? And we lost somebody else, if I'm not mistaken. But we've clearly brought in new guys that have not fit in like a glove. The club is not playing anywhere near
Grimaldo.
Played. I mentioned Grimaldo.
Did you?
Yes, he's the longest tenured guy on the team, if I'm not mistaken. We've not regained that mojo, and I think the pressure's piled on because Benfica's playing huge games. Obviously, having beaten Porto, I was expecting them to be a little bit more free, but going into San Siro, playing against Inter Milan, who I think has improved from what they were last year, it's not like, okay, I'll consent a loss, but, a victory on the road, a country or a stadium that Benfica's never, let's just say a stadium, that Benfica's never won in. Benfica never beaten a team at San Siro. I think if I'm not wrong, a team in Italy, period. Okay. It might have been a bit of a too high of a mountain to climb. But had they played well, lived through it, I could swallow it. But the fact is, they've not played well all season. And it's a concern.
Yeah.
Is it the players? Is it the coach? There's something there that is not clicking. And might be like Steve said, the whole balance thing and yada, yada, yada. But, man, listen, I'm sorry to be cruel, but that's what you get paid for. You get paid to figure it out.
Yeah.
Not in Christmas. By then it might be too late. You got to figure it out now. So.
Yeah. And now we have two challenging matches against Real Sociedad. That you could, on paper, you could probably looked at this game maybe a couple months back and said, well, this is a game that Benfica could win, both of them, and we're right back in the running. I'm not so sure that you beat Real Sociedad, that you take all 6 points from Real Sociedad. The Benfiquista in me wants to be positive and wants to say, yeah, so fuck yeah, we of course we're gonna go there and we're gonna beat them down. But I think at this point, you look at this Real Sociedad, that is a much better team than Benfica is. And I'm not talking about individualities, right? And position for position. But in terms of a team and having their shit together, Real Sociedad is a much higher level than, not a much higher level, but definitely a higher level than Benfica at this junction in the season. Steve, final thoughts on this game, things that haven't been said, so Dave could give some stats and we could wrap this up.
We only touched on it, but let's try to stick to the one positive. We have a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Trubin, part of the reason why it wasn't 4 or 5-0 was because Trubin was immense. But that's really the only positive. Not to go down the negative swirl that we've already been on and adding to it, but that was the only positive I could take from the match, was that Trubin is the real deal.
Yeah, it reminded me of some of Oblak's performances. That one kick save, man, close range kick save, that was incredible, man. It was really, really good from him.
Looked like Ed Belfour. Kick saving a beauty.
Yeah, no,
look.
Who's that?
It's hockey hockey goal.
I know.
But yeah, look, it's 3 points that we probably planned on giving away, but to me, I think that we need a much better Benfica in Europe than this, especially after last season. We need to build up on last season, and right now we're not. We're headed towards the Basel days.
I wish we could have just had a better game. The first game against Red Bull was just the early red card and goal was just so shocking, and I think we never could recuperate from that. If that was a more normal game, we probably would win it 1-0, and we wouldn't all be feeling so on edge. But because it was such a shocker, I think that our even though I know we haven't played well, but the team's mojo or mood is very down because of that result. I think the Inter game, all things aside, we could have played them off the park and still lost 1-0 and kind of been
because that's just typical
right?
Italian football, right?
Yeah, we would have been expected that, right? But
but again, Steve, Salzburg may not have the individualities, but they have the team. They have the chemistry. And this goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of the podcast, that Roger is still looking to find that balance. So despite having this team, most of these guys are ready. But there's key pieces.
Can I just throw one quick little thing out at this? Rui Costa interview. You guys said it, that he was very keen to say, this was the wish of the coach, Jurasek, Kokshu, all these guys. But a certain player, he said, an opportunity arose and we had to take it. Who's that?
Gedge.
No, Di Maria.
No, Di Maria. But Gedge was along the same lines.
Well, but Di Maria. And I wonder how... Di Maria is a great player, and I've said it earlier. I wonder if Roger was kind of dreading on how to make him work on this team.
Yeah, because he already had Neres. But look, no coach is going to say no to Di Maria.
Oh, no, I get it.
And you find a way. You find a way to make it work. And I think that's the struggle, and I've said this, his biggest struggle right now is how does he manage the squad? That's his biggest challenge. He's not finding ways to manage his squad, to find a really good group, a really core players, and that will going to build the momentum. And look, beginning of the season, maybe this is okay that we're going through this, and let the middle towards the final stretch of the season be where Benfica picks up momentum and it's whole compulsor the whole way. I hope it's like that, right? But right now, I don't know. I'm finding, I would never thought I'd say this, but I mean, Roger Schmidt is starting to give off some alarms, and I think that Chris has said the same thing also. So, Dave, stats on this game so we can move forward.
Benfica is still winless against Inter. 2 draws, 4 losses in all 6 meetings. 5th time that Benfica have opened the Champions League group stages with back-to-back losses. They were all eliminated in the previous 4 times.
Yep. Not much to say there. Turning our attention now to domestic competition, Benfica will go to Coimbra da Mota this Saturday, 8:30 local, to play Estoril. Dave, what's Estoril up to these days?
This season currently tied for last with 4 points through 7 games, 1 win, 1 draw, 5 losses. They've conceded the second most goals, 18 through the first 7 games this season. Fired their manager Alvaro Pacheco 2.5 weeks ago, and he was just recently named the new Guimarães manager, I believe yesterday.
Yesterday.
Last history between the 2 clubs: 53 wins, 12 draws, 4 losses. Last 10, 9 wins and 1 draw. So history on our side here.
Yeah. Estoril is on a 5. Go ahead, Dave. I mean, Chris.
I was just asking who we playing. Go ahead.
Estoril.
I didn't catch. Okay, go ahead.
No Di Maria, no Ba. I don't think those guys are going to be available. I don't even think that you'd risk those guys against Estoril.
Is that for sure?
Well, Ba's got.
Ba was just a contusion.
Yeah, right? Contusion, but that's been plaguing him since international duty. He came back with that contusion, and I think Di Maria is a muscular injury. Estoril is on a 5-game winless streak. But then I think this game is more than accessible to Benfica, and this is a game that precedes the one time that we love so much, international break. So let's finish this. Let's finish this up. Go international break. Heal some of these guys that need to heal. Work with the team if there's not a lot of international players that are going to be out. Most likely, yes. Congratulations to David Neres, who gets a call to the Canarinha. First time since 2019, and of course his call up. People will argue that comes as a result of Rafinha's injury. So the Estoril game. There's not much you could say. You just got to win. There's not, you got to continue on the chase, and the biggest challenge right now is to be able to get to the Sporting game with the same difference of points or better. That you have now, so you're able to leapfrog Sporting if you beat them. If we lose any more points, then we make it comfortable for Sporting to play against us. Chris,
So with Ba being hurt, what was the whole thing with João Vitor this week? He's not to be counted for.
So
anymore?
apparently João Vitor hasn't been performing in practice, so he didn't get a call up to make the trip to Italy.
I'm gonna.
Even
I can't confirm-
Antonio Silva made the trip.
I'm gonna throw some candy out here.
Throw some candy. Break the piñata, Chris.
Can't confirm nor deny, but Dave, to answer you directly, I hear that they're pushing João Vitor to the side because Andre Almeida is in spectacular shape. They're looking to open up a roster spot. All right.
Is Andre Almeida playing somewhere or no?
Yeah, na praia.
No praia.
I believe him and Quaresma both didn't officially retire, but they were both without clubs, from what I understand.
Right. But so that's the story behind that. So I don't know. I don't know what's gonna come of that situation. Obviously, the media is gonna make a little bit more than
He's done.
the media is. Because
Wait, I can't wait. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say he's done, guys. Shouldn't say he's done because you never know, right? Roger Schmidt gets fired, the next coach might like him.
Yeah.
You don't know, so we can't say until the window opens. We can't say he's done.
No, I'd have to tank really bad.
Yeah, I don't
You'd have to tank really bad for him to get fired. I think.
I think that Roger Schmidt is safe until the end of the season.
You think Did you think we tank really bad with Bruno? It happens. Look, I don't even want to play around, but I didn't expect Bruno to fall apart like the way he did, and it did.
He just got
Bruno
the
Lage.
axe.
Yeah, he's just got. Yeah,
I know.
He just got
He
sacked.
just got the axe, and
I know, and he got booked
too.
Yeah.
I'll send him a message tomorrow.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all we got. That's all we got. Episode 500 is what you've been listening to tonight with special guest Steve Santos. Cristiano, thanks for all the pressure that you have put on Steve all these years for him to appear, and he finally did
now
it.
he's gonna be back. He's gonna be back with more frequency. It's like that squeaky wheel that needs a little bit of oil once it starts going.
I know. I think it's a good way to.
I enjoyed it.
It's a good way to spend your Tuesday nights, Steve. Just talking with the boys, having a glass of wine. I saw you drinking that wine.
He needs to come back because I want to see this speech of defending football and the battle.
Yeah. Look, I appreciate everyone that's been on the chat, and sorry that we didn't read many questions, but we're up to an hour and 52 minutes of podcast, and usually we don't go that long, but obviously 1 hour and 52 minutes.
Good. I get the charge for 2 hours this week. All right.
I think that we need to keep it short, but obviously today with being episode 500, there were some things that need to be said. Steve is here. We always like to listen to Steve. Steve always brings a good perspective that contrasts with Cristiano's. So we always enjoy having Steve and Dave. I know you didn't talk a lot today, but I hope that you understand and forgive me that you didn't get to talk a lot.
I had the best seat in the house.
Awesome.
Week in and week out.
You and Roger Schmidt, except you perform.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, that's all we got. Once again, thank you for all the support. Episode 500 is what we served up tonight, and I'm glad that we reached this milestone. And Steve was saying that it's a really important, significant milestone for a project that started in a bedroom, halfway into the closet for the to muffle the sound, and here we are. And like I said, I've made great friends as a result, and thank you for all the support. We'll continue to do this until we feel that we're no longer needed. So until then, we'll be here, Cristiano included. Dave, always a pleasure. Steve, it's great having you, man. Please come back soon. Cristiano, always a pleasure to have you also, my friend. And thank you to all the Freddies. Thank you to everybody that is going to listen to this later or watch this on YouTube. And again, thanks for all the support. Love you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you all. And enjoy the rest of the week. Força Benfica.